Hello and welcome to another episode of Pobsa's Dharma Lounge. This is a place and a time where we can relax and investigate all things Dharma. Hi, I'm Pobsa Frank Jude, and I want to welcome you to Pobsa's Dharma Lounge. I would like to begin by thanking all of those who've offered dana since the last episode. It's been a while since I dropped an episode. It's been very busy here, but my daughter's back to school and things are opening up a bit. So I want to thank Jiu Ted Robbins, Ilchu Andre Talbot, Gabion Sally Weber, Chingu Jason Cummings, Iokin Tatiana Staloff, and Teriok Kate Rapley. Again, thank you so much for all that you give, for your dana, your support in all different ways. It's really deeply appreciated. And for those of you who are either new to the podcast or have been listening but haven't yet done it, please, the best way that you can support this podcast is by subscribing. So hit that little button that says subscribe, whatever platform you're on. If you have the option to rate it, give me a nice 4 or 5 stars. If you want to hit like on YouTube, you can also hit like or love, and comment, if you have the opportunity. I get these lovely emails, but I would love to see if more people want to engage in actual commenting. I read all the comments, I respond to all of them. Not that there are many, so it'd be great to see more. All right, so, and again, if you'd like to offer dana, anything given is really deeply appreciated. This is a labor of love, and so I don't monetize it, but it certainly would be lovely to receive some dana once in a while. Okay. So, what do we know? That's this episode. Ananda said to the Buddha, "I think there has never been a teacher as great as you, nor will there ever be one as great in the future." So the Buddha asks Ananda, "Have you known all the Buddhas of the past?" "No, honored one," responded Ananda. "Oh, but you are able to know all the Buddhas of the future then?" asked the Buddha. "No, honored one," Ananda repeated. "Then I suppose you know my awakened mind completely?" the Buddha asked. "No, honored one, I do not even know your mind completely," Ananda admitted. "Then how can you make such a bold statement as that I am the greatest teacher that ever was or will be? It's much better to talk of what you know than to speculate foolishly," the Buddha told Ananda. This is an exchange from the Majjhima Nikaya, and it's a good one to keep in mind if we find ourselves very sure of our perceptions and opinions. The thing is, the Buddha pointed out, our perceptions are mental formations, chitta samskara. They're constructs. The sensorium that we experience through our 5 sense organs prioritizes certain aspects of our experience over others. Right? Obviously, we see only the colors that we're able to see because of our color receptors in our eye. Right? Other people and other beings might see very differently. Right? So certain aspects are prioritized. And then what happens is that information is compared to our preconceptions, our assumptions, and the various heuristic models that we use. And the thing about preconceptions, assumptions, and heuristic models is that they can be inaccurate and even incorrect. Many of us naively think that we passively perceive external stimuli, like a camera that simply, whatever's in front of it, it records. But actually, the process of perception is a complex, active, dynamic process of construction. And it has many layers, and at each level or layer, opportunities for distortion and misperception come in. Just one example. Only a very small fraction of information from the outside world makes it to the parts of the brain involved in constructing perception. In fact, only the tiny fovea of our eyes actually records images in sharp 20/20 detail. 20/20 vision is only possible in the area of a postage stamp held at arm's length. Right? So if you hold your arm out in front of your face and imagine the area of a postage stamp, that is the only part that's in 20/20 vision. That small patch of vision carries about half of the information to your retina, and the other half is spread out across the rest of the retina. And for that part of your vision, you are legally blind. Right? So outside that fovea, that postage stamp area, your vision is a complete blur. And yet, most of us, including me when I'm wearing my eyeglasses, are not walking around in some impressionistic landscape. Right? Not only that, each of us has a blind spot called a scotoma, which corresponds to the location where the optic nerve exits the eye. But we don't see that blind spot because our brain, like Photoshop, processes a seamless image out of the sense data. And these two examples only hint at the nature of perception as a creative construction. Right? Those are from vision, but one of my favorite when we think about hearing, sound waves travel much slower than light. Right? Yet, when we're looking at someone, let's say 10 feet away from us or 20 feet away from us, right now, the photons bouncing off of them hits our retina way before the sound waves from their voice hits our ears. And yet our brain kind of combines it and it looks seamless. I've been told that this only works for about 85 feet or so. But if you go past that, sooner or later, you're going to be seeing the lips move before you hear the sound. We also often seem very sure of ourselves when we impute motivations to others. And this is kind of funny in a way, When we mess up, we tend to blame the environmental conditions. But when someone else messes up, we tend to blame their character. Additionally, we find that we can pontificate on subjects that we have very little experience in, as if we have the deepest insight into them. In fact, the Dunning-Kruger effect is a cognitive bias that we're prone to, where people with limited competence in a particular domain overestimate their understanding and knowledge. We saw this during the COVID pandemic, when so many anti-vaxxers and New Age proselytizers insisted that they knew better than trained epidemiologists and virologists. Interestingly, it's been shown that there's actually a complementary aspect to this effect, where those who actually do have expertise end up underestimating themselves. Perhaps it's because those who are experts in a field also understand how much there is that they do not understand or know. Right? That leads to a kind of humility. This passage from the Pali Canon reminds us that maybe we should be a bit more humble in regarding the confidence with which we hold our perceptions and opinions. The fourth of the 5 precepts regards speech, and it includes this understanding that we should avoid speaking of things of which we are not sure or at least offer our thoughts with some more humble caveats. Yet, if we reflect a bit more deeply, we may find that there are actually very few things of which we are absolutely sure. Ananda says he does not know the Buddha's mind completely, but truly, there's no one among us who can say that we know our own mind completely. It's been shown again and again through neuroscience and cognitive science that much of what we do and much of what we think is guided by the unconscious and the preconscious mind. And I don't think I have to mention, but I will, that we have no access to the unconscious and preconscious. Absolutely no access. We do things, and then we confabulate our reasons for having done so. And confabulation isn't lying. We really don't know, and so we make up reasons for why we do what we do, and we believe these confabulations. Perhaps we should keep this in mind when a child openly admits that they don't know why they've done something when we ask them why they did what they did. They're actually being completely honest. They're not even bothering to confabulate a reason. Right? I know every parent gets flustered in such situations, but truly, the toddler doesn't know why they spun the cat by its tail. Right? So in this spirit, right, it may be helpful to also remember that Bodhidharma, who mythically is said to have brought Zen Chan to China, when asked by Emperor Wu, "Who are you?" responded, "I don't know." If we too can remember that we often do not know, perhaps we can stay more intimate with our experience. Right? When we think we know, we tend not to pay as much attention. So if we know that we might not know, maybe we'll stay more intimately in contact with things. Right? We don't take people for granted. We might not do things on automatic pilot as much. Right? Perhaps we can stay more intimate with our experience, maintaining an ardent sense of curiosity, while at the same time holding a relaxed grasp on our perceptions and opinions. But we do love to speculate, don't we? Perhaps this exchange between the Buddha and Ananda can help us remember to speculate wisely, rather than foolishly assert things to be the way we say, when we may have little to no concrete evidence. The second of the 8 limbs of the Buddha's Noble Eightfold Path is sometimes translated as right thinking, or appropriate thinking, as I actually prefer. Sometimes rather than thinking, you might see it translated as motivation or intention. Right? But let's, for now, consider this idea as right thinking, right? The thinking that's in alignment with understanding, which is the first limb. One actual practice to help support appropriate thinking is to ask oneself, am I sure? Right? Am I sure? Whenever we find ourselves asserting something as fact, especially that leap to a judgment, right? Am I sure? For instance, when we're cut off by a driver on the highway and we immediately think that they're an asshole, we could ask ourselves, am I sure? What might one think if we knew for certain that the driver is rushing to the hospital because they've received a call that their child has been hit by a car? When we catch ourselves indulging in the gossip of speculation, we can stop and just kindly ask ourselves, what am I doing? And finally, when we see that we've given sway to foolish speculation, especially as to the motivations of others' behavior, as we are wont to do, we can simply say to ourselves, hello, habit energy. Because after all, we need patience if we wish to change our habitual ways of reacting. Change rarely, if ever, comes easily in this regard. Now, Of course, all of this doesn't mean we cannot know anything, right? The radical skeptics of the Greek school of skepticism taught that we could not know anything. That's not what's meant by skepticism in the contemporary skeptical community now. It simply means that we want to keep in mind that, like science and scientific thinking, we want to investigate, hypothesize, make predictions, and then test against what we thought might happen, for instance. What we know is always provisional and therefore should be open to revaluation whenever confronted with new information. Ask yourself, what would it take for me to change my mind? And if you come across anything where you say nothing, that to me would be problematic. Now, is what we believe in line with the consensus of those experts in any particular field? That's an aspect of the teaching that sometimes gets overlooked, and people talk about, like, see for yourself, my truth. But we are easily fooled by ourselves. Richard Feynman said, the easiest person to fool is yourself. So we also want to look at the consensus of those with expertise. And this is basically the advice given by the Buddha in another famous discourse that he gave to the Kalama people. And I will devote a few future episodes of Pobsa's Dharma Lounge to that very famous sutta. So in this spirit of inquiry, I'll be offering a 4-week course on the third domain of mindfulness, the mind. And that's starting this September for 4 Saturdays. It's alive on Zoom, but it's also recorded in case your time zone doesn't permit you being there live. So you'll get the recordings. Each week, there's also a guided meditation that you get to keep forever after that. So in this course, along with the meditation instructions, the practice instructions given in the Satipatthana by the Buddha, I'll also be sharing some science-based tools for the development of critical thinking. And you can find info in the episode description or by going to www.mindfulnessyoga.net. Click on Study, and then in the drop-down menu, look for Minding the Mind. I do hope that some of you will consider joining me for this course on the mind and investigating the nature of the mind, again, through the Buddha's teachings and some of the cutting-edge metacognition based on neuro and cognitive science. All right. So thanks again. Until the next episode, please stay well. So once again, thank you for joining me in Pobsa's Dharma Lounge. Please hit subscribe, share it with those that you think might be interested. And the course instruction, the course description rather, and how to register is in the episode description, along with information for Dana. Again, thank you and stay well.